Look, is it Goyer? Yeah, Goyer!
Hello, friends. If you're looking for an in depth review of Baich Blade Trinity 2004, you're in the right place. In this video, we'll cover the full story, the incredible cast, box office performance, and standout performances. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's dive right in. The world exists in a fragile balance between humans and vampires, a hidden war unfolding in the shadows where most people remain unaware of the true danger surrounding them. Cities appear normal on the surface, busy streets, glowing lights, and everyday life. But beneath that illusion lies a dark underworld controlled by powerful vampire factions. These creatures have evolved beyond simple predators. They are organized, intelligent, and deeply embedded within human society, manipulating systems, controlling information, and expanding their influence quietly. At the center of this war stands Blade, a unique being known as the Daywalker. Born from a tragic event that left him with the strength of a vampire but none of their weaknesses to sunlight, Blade has dedicated his entire existence to hunting and eliminating vampires. His life is defined by discipline, precision, and an unrelenting mission. Unlike others, he does not hesitate, does not negotiate, and does not lose focus. For Blade, this war is personal. It is not just about survival, but about preventing the world from falling into darkness. Blade operates with a methodical approach, targeting vampire operations one by one. His combat style is efficient and lethal, combining advanced weaponry with martial skill. Every encounter is calculated, every move precise. He uses specialized weapons designed to exploit vampire weaknesses, ensuring that his enemies have little chance to retaliate. His presence strikes fear into the vampire community, earning him a reputation as an unstoppable force. However, the vampire leadership is not blind to this threat. They recognize that Blade is disrupting their long-term plans, eliminating key figures, and weakening their network. In response, they begin to strategize on a larger scale. This is no longer about avoiding him, it is about removing him permanently. They understand that to defeat Blade, they must think beyond traditional methods and introduce something far more powerful into the conflict. At the same time, Blade's existence is not without struggle. Despite his strength, he constantly battles the darker side of his nature. The thirst for blood is always present, controlled only through discipline and a serum developed to suppress his vampire instincts. This internal conflict adds another layer to his character. He is not just fighting external enemies, but also maintaining control over himself. One mistake, one lapse in control, could turn him into the very thing he hunts. As the story unfolds, a major shift begins within the vampire hierarchy. They initiate a plan that goes far beyond their usual operations. Instead of simply countering Blade's attacks, they aim to change the entire structure of power. This involves awakening an ancient force, something far older and more dangerous than the vampires Blade has faced so far. The decision is risky, but desperation drives them. Blade has become too dangerous to ignore. Meanwhile, Blade continues his relentless pursuit, unaware of the scale of what is about to unfold. His focus remains on eliminating targets, dismantling operations, and staying ahead of his enemies. Yet subtle signs begin to appear: changes in vampire behavior, unusual movements, and a growing sense that something larger is happening behind the scenes. The world around him is shifting, and the war is about to enter a new phase. What was once a controlled battle is now evolving into something far more unpredictable and dangerous. Blade is stepping into a conflict that will test not only his strength and skill, but also his limits as a warrior and as a being caught between two worlds. The hunt continues. The balance of power begins to shift quietly but with calculated precision. The vampire leadership, realizing that direct confrontation with Blade has repeatedly failed, changes its strategy completely. Instead of fighting him in the shadows where he is strongest, they decide to bring the war into the open, but in a way that turns the world itself against him. This is no longer just a battle of strength, it is a battle of perception, manipulation, and control. Deep within their hidden network, high-ranking vampires gather, discussing a plan that is both bold and dangerous. Blade has become more than a threat, he has become a symbol of resistance, a constant disruption to their expansion. Eliminating him physically has proven nearly impossible, so they shift their focus toward destroying his identity, his reputation, and his ability to operate freely. If they cannot kill him directly, they will isolate him, weaken him, and force him into a position where survival becomes nearly impossible. This plan begins with precision targeting through their influence over human systems, law enforcement, media, and surveillance. They start constructing a narrative. Carefully staged events, manipulated evidence, and controlled leaks begin to paint Blade not as a protector, but as a dangerous vigilante, even a criminal. Scenes of violence are reframed, his actions misinterpreted, and his presence exaggerated into something far more threatening than the truth. At the same time, Blade continues his mission, unaware that he is being watched more closely than ever before. His movements are tracked, his attacks recorded, and his patterns analyzed. Every strike he makes against vampire targets is used against him, building a case designed to turn human authorities into his enemies. For the first time, Blade is not just hunted by vampires, he is being hunted by the very world he has been trying to protect. The shift becomes clear during a high-intensity operation. Blade storms a vampire hideout with his usual precision, swift movements, calculated attacks, and complete control over the situation. The fight is brutal, fast, and efficient. Enemies fall quickly under his assault, leaving little room for resistance. But this time, something is different. Hidden cameras capture every moment, angles carefully chosen to make the scene appear chaotic and uncontrolled. The truth is distorted in real time. As Blade exits the scene, the consequences begin to unfold immediately. Law enforcement, already influenced by the manipulated narrative, arrives not as neutral observers, but as active pursuers. For the first time, Blade finds himself surrounded not just by enemies he understands, but by humans who see him as a threat. The lines between ally and enemy begin to blur, creating a new level of danger that even Blade did not anticipate. Despite his skill and awareness, this situation forces him into unfamiliar territory. He cannot fight humans the way he fights vampires, not without becoming exactly what his enemies want him to appear as. Every decision becomes more complex. Every action carries consequences beyond immediate survival. The war has shifted from physical confrontation to psychological and strategic warfare. Meanwhile, within the vampire hierarchy, the next phase of their plan begins. They move forward with the awakening of an ancient entity, something far more powerful than any modern vampire. This being represents a new level of threat, one that could change the entire structure of the war. The decision is not taken lightly, but desperation has pushed them to this point. Blade's continued existence has forced them to gamble everything. Back in the human world, the pressure on Blade intensifies. News reports begin to circulate, painting him as a dangerous figure. Authorities escalate their efforts, deploying specialized units to track and capture him. The city itself becomes hostile territory. Places that once provided cover now feel exposed, every movement carrying the risk of detection. Blade is no longer operating in the shadows, he is being dragged into the spotlight. This creates a new kind of isolation. Blade, who has always operated alone, now faces a situation where even solitude becomes dangerous. He must constantly adapt, changing locations, altering strategies, and staying one step ahead, not just of vampires, but of an entire system working against him. The war is no longer hidden, it is expanding, becoming more complex, more dangerous, and far more unpredictable. Amid all of this, Blade's internal struggle grows stronger. The pressure, the constant pursuit, and the shifting nature of the war test his discipline in new ways. The serum that controls his darker instincts becomes even more critical as stress and exhaustion push him closer to the edge. The line between control and chaos becomes thinner, and Blade must rely on every ounce of his training to maintain balance. The city transforms into a battlefield where danger exists on every level: physical, psychological, and strategic. Blade is no longer just a hunter, he is now the hunted. Every move he makes is calculated, every decision weighed against consequences that extend far beyond a single fight. And somewhere in the shadows, something ancient begins to awaken. The war is evolving, the rules are changing, and Blade is about to face a threat unlike anything before. The city is no longer a hunting ground for Blade, it has become a trap. Every street, every building, every shadow carries the risk of exposure. Law enforcement units move with urgency, their operations coordinated and aggressive, driven by a narrative they fully believe. To them, Blade is no longer a protector operating in secrecy. He is a dangerous figure responsible for unexplained violence. The manipulation by the vampire network has been executed perfectly. Blade moves carefully through this new reality, adapting his strategies in real time. He avoids open confrontations, choosing stealth over direct engagement whenever possible. His movements are precise, calculated, and silent. Every location he uses is temporary, every route unpredictable. The discipline that once made him an effective hunter now becomes essential for survival. But this is a different kind of war, one where hesitation can lead to capture and every second counts. During one tense sequence, Blade is forced into a direct encounter with law enforcement. Surrounded and outnumbered, he must make a critical decision. Fighting back would only confirm the false image created around him. Escaping without harming anyone becomes his only option. What follows is a fast-paced, high-risk escape, tight corridors, narrow alleys, and rapid movements that require both precision and restraint. Blade neutralizes threats without causing lasting harm, demonstrating control even under extreme pressure. This moment defines the shift in his situation. He is no longer just fighting enemies he understands. He is navigating a world where perception is his greatest obstacle. Every action must now serve two purposes: survival, and control of the narrative, even if he cannot directly change it. Meanwhile, within the vampire hierarchy, the awakening process begins. Deep within a hidden location, far removed from the city's noise, an ancient chamber is prepared. The atmosphere is heavy, almost suffocating, as high ranking vampires oversee a ritual that has not been performed in centuries. This is not just another operation, it is a gamble that could reshape the entire war. The entity they seek to awaken is not like them. It is older, stronger, and far more unpredictable. Known as Dracula, this being represents the origin of their kind, a creature whose power goes beyond anything Blade has encountered. But with such power comes uncertainty. Even the vampires themselves do not fully understand what they are about to unleash. The ritual is slow, deliberate, and filled with tension. Symbols, ancient texts, and controlled environments are used to ensure success. Every movement is calculated, every step precise. The vampires know that failure is not an option, but success may come with consequences they cannot control. As the process unfolds, subtle changes begin to occur. The air shifts, the environment reacts, and a presence begins to form. Something powerful, something aware. The awakening has begun, and with it, a new level of danger enters the world. Back in the city, Blade senses that something is wrong. The patterns he has studied, the behaviors he has learned to read, they are changing. The vampires are no longer reacting, they are preparing. Their movements are more coordinated, their actions more deliberate. This is not random, it is part of something larger. Amid this growing tension, new players begin to emerge. Individuals who have been operating in the shadows, observing both Blade and the vampire network, start to take action. Unlike the authorities or the vampires, these figures understand the true nature of the conflict. They recognize Blade not as a threat but as a necessary force in a war that most of the world does not even know exists. Their introduction adds another layer to the situation. Blade is no longer completely alone, but trust does not come easily. In a world filled with deception and manipulation, every new alliance carries risk. Yet, the scale of the threat ahead may require cooperation whether he is ready for it or not. The city continues to close in on him, surveillance increases, patrols intensify, and the pressure becomes constant. Blade must balance movement with caution, speed with strategy, and action with restraint. The margin for error disappears, leaving only calculated decisions and precise execution. At the same time, far from the city's lights, the awakening reaches a critical stage. The ancient presence grows stronger, its influence beginning to spread. The vampires watch, uncertain whether they have made the right decision, but unable to turn back. Two paths are now moving toward collision. Blade, hunted and isolated, navigating a world turned against him, and something ancient, powerful, and unpredictable, rising from the shadows. The war is no longer just about survival, it is about control. And soon it will be about dominance. The pressure surrounding Blade reaches a breaking point. The city is now fully mobilized against him, with law enforcement agencies coordinating efforts at a level he has never faced before. Surveillance systems track unusual movements, tactical units are deployed across key zones, and every known location tied to Blade is being monitored. What was once a hidden war has now expanded into a visible operation with Blade at the center of it. Despite his experience and precision, the overwhelming coordination begins to limit his options. Safe routes become compromised, temporary hideouts are no longer secure, and even his usual escape patterns are anticipated. Blade adapts constantly, but the net around him is tightening. The war has shifted from one of control to one of containment, and for the first time, Blade is being pushed toward a situation where escape may not be possible. During a critical moment, the trap is finally executed. Through careful planning and manipulation, Blade is cornered in a controlled environment. Tactical units surround him, cutting off every exit. The situation is different from anything he has faced before, not because of the number of enemies, but because of who they are. These are not vampires, they are highly trained human operatives acting under the belief that they are stopping a dangerous threat. Blade assesses the situation instantly. Fighting his way out would be possible, but at a cost he refuses to accept. Every move he makes now is about control, not destruction. The seconds stretch as tension builds, and in that moment, the war's complexity becomes clear. Blade is no longer just a hunter, he is a target trapped between two worlds, unable to fully act against either without consequences. He is captured. This moment marks a major turning point. Blade, the unstoppable force that vampires feared, is now restrained, disarmed, and placed into a system designed to contain threats like him. The shift is not just physical, it is symbolic. The narrative created by the vampires has succeeded. The world now sees Blade as the enemy. As he is transported under heavy guard, the scale of the manipulation becomes even clearer. Officials discuss him as a dangerous anomaly, something to be studied, controlled, and neutralized. There is no understanding of the true war, no awareness of the vampires operating within their own systems. Blade realizes that the battlefield has expanded far beyond what he can fight alone. Meanwhile, within the shadows, a new group steps forward, the Night Stalkers. Unlike the authorities, they know the truth. They have been observing the conflict for some time, operating independently, gathering intelligence, and preparing for the moment when intervention becomes necessary. Their approach is different from Blade's, where he operates alone with precision and focus. They function as a coordinated team, combining strategy, technology, and specialized skills. For them, Blade is not a threat, he is an asset, but more importantly, he is essential. The war has reached a stage where individual efforts are no longer enough. The enemy has evolved, and so must those who oppose it. As Blade is held in containment, the situation escalates rapidly. The vampires, having successfully removed him from the battlefield, move forward with their next phase. The awakening that began earlier is now reaching completion. The ancient entity they sought to bring back is no longer dormant. Deep within a hidden location, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. The chamber that once held stillness is now filled with presence, heavy, undeniable, and powerful. The figure that emerges is not like the modern vampires. There is something different, something older, something far more dangerous. Dracula has awakened. His presence changes everything. Unlike the vampires who brought him back, he does not operate under their control. He observes, analyzes, and adapts instantly to the modern world. His awareness is sharp, his intelligence evident, and his power unmatched. The vampires who once believed they could use him now begin to question their decision. Dracula is not a weapon, he is a force. Back in the human world, Blade's situation reaches its most critical point. Confined and restrained, he is placed in a system that does not understand him and does not intend to. Yet, even in this position, his mind remains active, analyzing every detail, every movement, every opportunity. At the same time, the Night Stalkers begin their operation. Their objective is clear: extract Blade, disrupt the vampire network, and prepare for the threat that is now emerging. They move with precision, coordinating every step, aware that timing is critical. The collision of these forces is inevitable. Blade captured but not broken. The Night Stalkers ready to intervene, and Dracula, fully awakened, stepping into a world that is no longer prepared for him. The war has entered its most dangerous phase. Control is slipping, and the real battle is about to begin. Blade's capture sends a shockwave through the hidden war. For the first time, the Daywalker is not in control of the battlefield. Confined within a high security facility, stripped of his weapons, and surrounded by individuals who neither understand nor believe the truth, Blade faces a different kind of danger: powerlessness within a system designed to suppress him. Inside the facility, the atmosphere is tense and clinical. Officials observe him not as a person, but as a subject, something to be analyzed, questioned, and contained. Their perception has been shaped entirely by the narrative constructed by the vampire network. To them, Blade is unpredictable, dangerous, and potentially inhuman. Every movement he makes is monitored, every response recorded. Despite the restraints, Blade remains calm. His mind works constantly, analyzing patterns, guard rotations, security protocols, weaknesses in the system. Even in captivity, he is not passive. He waits, studies, and prepares. The discipline that defines him does not weaken under pressure, it sharpens. Meanwhile, outside the facility, the Night Stalkers initiate their plan. This team operates with precision and coordination, combining intelligence, technology, and combat readiness. Unlike Blade, who has spent most of his life working alone, they rely on teamwork, communication, and layered strategy. Their understanding of the vampire network allows them to anticipate responses and exploit vulnerabilities. Their objective is clear: extract Blade before the situation becomes irreversible. But the mission is not simple. The facility is heavily guarded, equipped with advanced surveillance systems, and monitored continuously. Any mistake could trigger a full lockdown, making escape impossible. The operation begins with calculated subtlety. Power systems are disrupted in specific areas, communication lines are temporarily disabled, and attention is redirected. The Night Stalkers move in coordinated silence, neutralizing obstacles without drawing unnecessary attention. Every step is synchronized, every action purposeful. Inside, Blade senses the shift immediately. The environment changes, slight interruptions, altered patterns, subtle signs that something is happening. He does not react outwardly, but internally. He prepares. He knows that this is not coincidence, someone is coming. The moment arrives with precision. The Night Stalkers breach the facility, moving quickly and efficiently. Guards are bypassed, systems overridden, and within moments they reach Blade. The encounter is brief but significant. There is no time for explanation, no room for hesitation. They free him, return his weapons, and initiate extraction. Blade's reaction is controlled but cautious. He does not immediately trust them. In a world filled with deception, trust is a risk. Yet the situation leaves little choice. Survival and strategy align. Working together is necessary, at least for now. The escape is intense and fast paced. Alarms begin to trigger, security forces mobilize, and the facility shifts into emergency mode. Blade, now fully equipped, moves with his usual precision, clearing paths and creating openings. The Night Stalkers support him, covering angles, coordinating movements, and ensuring that the extraction remains controlled despite the chaos. What follows is a seamless blend of individual skill and team coordination. Blade's raw combat efficiency combined with the Night Stalker's structured tactics creates a dynamic that is both powerful and effective. They move through the facility like a single unit, adapting to obstacles in real time. Eventually, they break free. The facility falls behind them as they disappear into the city once again. But this escape marks more than just survival, it marks the beginning of a new phase. Blade is no longer alone. Back in a secure location, the tension shifts from action to interaction. Blade observes the Night Stalkers carefully. Each member brings something different: skills, perspectives, and approaches that contrast with his own. Their methods are more collaborative, their strategies more layered. This difference creates both potential and conflict. Trust does not come easily to Blade. His entire existence has been built on independence, control, and self reliance. The idea of working within a team challenges his instincts, yet the scale of the threat ahead forces him to reconsider. The war has changed, and adapting is no longer optional. While this new alliance begins to take shape, the true danger continues to grow elsewhere. Dracula, now fully awakened, begins to explore the modern world. His presence is calm but commanding. He observes everything: technology, human behavior, the structure of society. Unlike other vampires, he does not rush. He learns, he adapts. What makes him dangerous is not just his strength but his awareness. He understands that this world operates differently and he adjusts accordingly. The vampires who awakened him watch carefully, uncertain of their control. They begin to realize that they have not created a weapon, they have unleashed something far beyond their influence. Dracula moves through the world with purpose, analyzing both humans and vampires. His perspective is different. He does not see the current vampire hierarchy as dominant, he sees it as flawed, weak, dependent on systems rather than true power. This realization shifts the balance even further. The vampires who once believed they were in control now face a new uncertainty. The force they awakened may not serve them, it may replace them. Back with Blade and the Night Stalkers, information begins to align. The existence of Dracula is confirmed, and the scale of the threat becomes clear. This is not just another enemy, this is the origin, the source, something that redefines the entire conflict. Blade understands immediately everything changes now. The war is no longer about hunting vampires, it is about stopping something that cannot be easily controlled. The alliance is formed, the enemy has evolved, and the next battle will determine everything. The aftermath of Blade's escape marks the beginning of a new dynamic in the war. For the first time, he is no longer operating alone, and this shift introduces both strength and tension. The Night Stalkers function as a coordinated unit, relying on shared intelligence, synchronized planning, and mutual trust, concepts that clash with Blade's deeply ingrained independence. Inside their hidden base, the atmosphere is focused yet cautious. Advanced equipment, surveillance systems, and weapon prototypes line the walls, reflecting a different approach to the war, one rooted in preparation and innovation rather than instinct and experience alone. Blade observes everything silently, analyzing not just the tools but the people using them. He is assessing whether this alliance is an advantage or a liability. The Night Stalkers, on the other hand, study Blade just as closely. To them, he is a legend, an unstoppable hunter whose reputation has shaped the entire conflict. But legends are unpredictable. They understand his value, but they also recognize the difficulty of integrating someone who has never relied on anyone else. This mutual observation creates an unspoken tension, one that must be resolved if they are to survive what lies ahead. The first step toward cooperation begins with information sharing. The Night Stalkers reveal what they know about the vampire network's recent activities, the sudden coordination, the unusual movements, and most importantly, the awakening of Dracula. The room grows quiet as the full weight of this revelation settles in. Blade listens carefully, processing every detail. He has faced powerful enemies before, but this is different. Dracula is not just another target, he is the origin, the blueprint from which all vampires were created. That alone changes the rules. Strength, speed, and weapons may not be enough. This will require understanding, adaptation, and possibly a completely new strategy. Meanwhile, Dracula continues to explore the modern world with calculated curiosity. He moves through it not as an outsider, but as a silent observer, learning rapidly. He studies human behavior, technological systems, and the structure of power within both human and vampire societies. His intelligence allows him to adapt almost instantly, making him far more dangerous than a creature driven purely by instinct. What makes Dracula truly unsettling is his perspective. He does not see himself as part of the current vampire hierarchy. In his view, they are diluted, weakened by time and dependence on systems. He represents something purer, more powerful, and far less constrained. This realization creates tension within the vampire leadership. The very force they awakened to destroy Blade is now becoming a threat to them as well. Their control begins to slip, not through open rebellion, but through subtle shifts in power. Dracula does not obey, he observes, he does not follow, he decides, and with every passing moment, it becomes clear that he is not interested in serving anyone. Back at the Night Stalker's base, preparation intensifies, weapons are modified, strategies refined, and scenarios analyzed. This is no longer a reactive fight, it is a calculated build up toward an unavoidable confrontation. Blade begins to engage more actively, offering insights based on his experience. His understanding of vampire behavior, combined with the Night Stalker's technological edge, starts to form a more complete approach. Still, the issue of trust remains. Blade operates on instinct and precision, while the team relies on coordination and planning. During a training session, this difference becomes clear. Blade moves with speed and efficiency, neutralizing threats before they fully develop. The Night Stalkers, however, emphasize positioning, communication, and layered defense. The contrast creates friction but also reveals potential. Gradually, a balance begins to form. Blade starts to recognize the value of support, while the Night Stalkers adapt to his direct, aggressive style. This evolution is subtle but critical. The war ahead will not allow for division. Unity, even if imperfect, becomes essential. At the same time, intelligence reports indicate a major shift within the vampire network. Internal conflicts begin to surface as Dracula's presence disrupts their structure. Some factions seek to align with him, hoping to gain favor. Others fear him, recognizing the threat he poses to their authority. This instability weakens the network but also makes it more unpredictable. Blade understands the opportunity within this chaos. A divided enemy is vulnerable but also dangerous. Timing becomes critical. Acting too soon could mean facing a unified response. Waiting too long could allow Dracula to consolidate power completely. The tension builds steadily. Every piece of information, every movement, every decision leads toward a single conclusion. A major confrontation is coming. Blade stands at the center of it all, no longer alone but not fully integrated. A warrior adapting to a new way of fighting, preparing for an enemy unlike anything he has faced before. Dracula continues to evolve, his presence growing stronger, his influence expanding quietly but undeniably. The vampire world fractures. The alliance strengthens. The time for preparation ends and action begins. For the first time, Blade and the Night Stalkers move together on a full-scale mission, no longer testing, no longer observing, but executing a coordinated strike against the vampire network. The objective is clear: disrupt a major vampire operation, gather critical intelligence, and test how effective this new alliance truly is under real combat conditions. The target location is heavily fortified, hidden within the structure of the city, designed to operate unnoticed while maintaining strict internal security. Surveillance systems, armed guards, and controlled access points make infiltration difficult, but this is where the Night Stalkers excel. The mission begins with precision. Power grids are subtly disrupted, communication channels interfered with, and blind spots in surveillance carefully exploited. Each team member moves into position with calculated timing. Blade, positioned at the front, waits for the signal, not impatient but focused. This is different from his usual approach where he would already be inside, already eliminating targets. Now he moves as part of something larger. The signal comes. In an instant, the operation unfolds. Entry points are breached simultaneously, confusion spreads among the guards, and the team moves with synchronized efficiency. Blade leads the assault, his movements sharp and controlled. Every strike is deliberate, every action precise. Vampires fall quickly under his attacks, his experience and discipline cutting through resistance like a force of nature. But this time, he is not alone in the chaos. The Night Stalkers operate alongside him, covering angles, controlling space, and eliminating threats that would otherwise slow the advance. Their coordination transforms the battlefield. Where Blade brings intensity and speed, they bring structure and adaptability. Together, they become something far more effective than either could be alone. The fight intensifies as they move deeper into the facility. Opponents become stronger, more organized, responding quickly to the intrusion. The environment itself becomes a factor. Tight corridors, limited visibility, and shifting positions create constant pressure. Every movement must be calculated, every decision immediate. Blade adapts seamlessly. He begins to integrate with the team's rhythm, adjusting his timing, allowing openings to be created and exploited. This evolution is subtle but powerful. He is no longer just fighting, he is working within a system, enhancing it while being enhanced by it. At the same time, the Night Stalkers adapt to him, they anticipate his movements, support his aggression, and build around his strengths. This mutual adjustment creates a flow in combat that is both dynamic and controlled. The battlefield becomes less chaotic and more strategic even under intense pressure. As they reach the core of the operation, the resistance increases dramatically. Elite vampire guards step forward, faster, stronger, and more disciplined than the others. These are not ordinary enemies, they are trained specifically for moments like this. The confrontation is immediate and brutal. Blade engages directly, his strikes precise and relentless. The Night Stalkers support from multiple angles, creating openings and controlling the environment. The fight becomes a test of endurance, skill, and coordination. Amid this intense battle, something changes. The atmosphere shifts. There is a presence, subtle at first but undeniable. The remaining vampires react differently, not just with fear, but with something deeper recognition. Dracula is near. Without warning, the situation escalates beyond anything the team anticipated. Dracula appears, not rushed, not aggressive, but composed and observing. His presence alone changes the energy of the entire battlefield. The fight slows, tension rising as both sides become aware of something far more powerful than the conflict itself. Blade turns, sensing it immediately. This is not like any enemy he has faced before. There is no chaos in Dracula's movement, no wasted energy. Everything about him is controlled, deliberate, and confident. The two forces stand momentarily in balance, Blade and the Night Stalkers on one side, Dracula on the other. Then, without warning, Dracula moves. The speed is beyond expectation. His movements are fluid, almost effortless, yet overwhelmingly powerful. He engages not with reckless aggression, but with calculated precision. Each action demonstrates a level of control that surpasses anything seen before. Blade reacts instantly, meeting him head on. The clash is intense, a combination of speed, strength, and precision that pushes both combatants to their limits. But even in this exchange, it becomes clear Dracula is different. He is not just strong, he is evolved beyond the rules Blade has mastered. The Night Stalkers attempt to support, but quickly realize that direct engagement is far more dangerous than anticipated. This is not a fight they can win through standard tactics. The objective shifts immediately, survival becomes the priority. Blade recognizes it. This is not the moment for victory. This is the moment to understand the enemy and live to fight again. The team begins a controlled retreat, covering each other, maintaining formation even under extreme pressure. Dracula does not pursue aggressively, instead, he watches, analyzing, learning. This is not a defeat, it is a warning. As they escape, the realization settles in. The enemy is not just powerful, he is something entirely different. Back at their base, the atmosphere is heavy with tension. The mission succeeded in gathering intelligence, but at a cost. The reality of Dracula's power changes everything. Blade stands silent, processing the encounter. For the first time, he has faced something he cannot defeat the usual way. The war has changed again. The enemy has revealed himself. And the next battle will require more than strength. The aftermath of the first encounter with Dracula leaves the team shaken yet resolute. Blade knows more clearly than ever that brute force alone will not win this war. Dracula is not just a predator, he is a strategic, intelligent force, studying every movement, anticipating every attack. To defeat him, the Night Stalkers and Blade must adapt, plan, and synchronize in ways they have never tried before. Back at their hidden base, the team analyzes footage, compiles intelligence, and reconstructs every movement from the mission. Maps of vampire activity are cross referenced with city surveillance, patterns are analyzed, and potential weaknesses in Dracula's behavior are hypothesized. This process is meticulous and time consuming but essential. Blade, while usually a lone wolf, begins to fully integrate into this methodical approach. He contributes insight born from years of experience teaching the Night Stalkers to anticipate vampire behavior, exploit subtle weaknesses, and maximize efficiency. Yet the tension remains. Blade is cautious, trust does not come easily, and every decision is weighed carefully. Meanwhile, Dracula's presence continues to shift the balance within the vampire hierarchy. Factions grow restless, unsure whether to follow or challenge him. His intelligence and power disrupt existing orders. Some vampires attempt to ally with him, seeking favor. Others fear his authority, preparing defensive measures. The ripple effects are immense, threatening to destabilize centuries of control. Blade and the Night Stalkers decide that offensive action must be paired with preparation. Weaponry is upgraded, incorporating experimental designs capable of piercing Dracula's formidable defenses. Reinforced stakes, specialized explosives, and advanced firearms are readied. Every measure is designed to give the team an edge, no matter how slight. The team also trains relentlessly. Blade's combat style, honed over decades, is blended with Night Stalker's coordinated tactics, creating a hybrid approach that combines speed, precision, and teamwork. Drills are exhaustive, focusing on communication, timing, and adaptability. Each member learns not only to fight but to anticipate each other's movements instinctively. Yet preparation is not purely physical. Blade and the team delve into the mythology surrounding Dracula, studying ancient texts, rituals, and historical accounts. They attempt to uncover psychological patterns, behavioral tendencies, and potential vulnerabilities. Knowledge becomes as critical as weaponry. Amid all this, Blade struggles internally. The intensity of Dracula's power is a constant reminder that his usual methods may fail. The serum controlling his darker instincts is tested by stress, fatigue, and uncertainty. He knows that any lapse could be fatal, not just to himself but to the team. Discipline, focus, and control become paramount. As the team finalizes their plan, they recognize that a direct confrontation is inevitable. Dracula is not a foe that can be ignored. Unlike typical vampire adversaries, he does not strike blindly. Every action is calculated. The war now extends beyond the physical, it is psychological, strategic, and existential. Simultaneously, the vampire network continues to fracture under Dracula's silent influence. Chaos spreads through the ranks, and smaller factions take bold, reckless actions. Blade and the Night Stalkers monitor these movements closely, seeing opportunities to weaken the enemy before the ultimate confrontation. Finally, after days of preparation, Blade and the team embark on a coordinated operation to lure key vampire leaders into a controlled location. The objective: destabilize the hierarchy, gather intelligence on Dracula's movements, and test the effectiveness of their combined forces in high pressure conditions. The mission begins smoothly. The team executes precise maneuvers, neutralizing lower ranking threats while avoiding unnecessary exposure. Blade moves like a force of nature, his skill unmatched, yet now enhanced by the support and structure of the Night Stalkers. However, subtle signs indicate that Dracula is aware. The energy in the city shifts, movements become more unpredictable, and the shadows themselves seem alive. Blade senses it immediately, a presence watching, analyzing, calculating. This is no longer just a war against vampires, it is a confrontation with something ancient, intelligent, and unstoppable. Blade and the Night Stalkers continue their operation, aware that every step brings them closer to an inevitable encounter. Strategy, preparation, and precision are their only allies. The city becomes a chessboard, the vampires and humans pieces on a complex, dangerous field. Blade stands at the center, focused, disciplined, and ready. The enemy is near, the war escalates, and the first real test of combined force is about to begin. The city's shadows have grown restless. Blade and the Night Stalkers move with purpose, tracking patterns of vampire activity that hint at Dracula's influence. Every alleyway, every building, every flicker of movement could indicate an enemy or an ambush. The tension is palpable, Blade's instincts sharpen to a razor edge, while the Night Stalkers rely on synchronized communication to stay ahead. Intelligence reports suggest Dracula is now actively engaging with human systems. Unlike ordinary vampires, he does not hide. He observes, manipulates, and experiments, testing boundaries to assess both human and vampire behavior. This direct interaction signals a new phase. Dracula is no longer content to remain in the shadows. His awareness and adaptability elevate the threat to unprecedented levels. Blade senses the shift immediately. This is no ordinary enemy maneuver. Dracula is deliberately creating scenarios to measure, provoke, and destabilize. Blade's mind races, calculating potential outcomes, possible traps, and the best approach to counteract this unprecedented intelligence. The Night Stalkers, though highly trained, are challenged by this change. Their prior experience dealt with predictable patterns, whereas Dracula's methods are dynamic and unpredictable. Every operation they attempt to execute is subtly manipulated. The team must rely not only on their weapons but also on intuition, adaptability, and rapid problem solving. A direct encounter becomes unavoidable. A heavily fortified location, previously neutral, suddenly becomes a focal point of vampire and human activity. Blade recognizes the signs and prepares the team. The operation begins. The Night Stalkers advance with coordinated precision, covering all angles, ensuring that Blade can strike with maximum efficiency. Blade moves through the environment like a shadow, fast, silent, and lethal. Every strike is calculated, every move executed with surgical accuracy. But the moment changes. Dracula emerges. His presence is commanding yet controlled, his movements deliberate and unnervingly calm. The battlefield shifts instantly, the energy, the tension, the stakes all escalate beyond what the team has experienced. The initial clash is immediate and devastating. Blade engages with full force using his speed, precision, and weaponry to test Dracula's defenses. Yet it becomes clear that this is no ordinary confrontation. Dracula anticipates attacks, counters with near perfect timing, and strikes with a combination of strength and intelligence that is almost unnatural. The Night Stalkers attempt to intervene, supporting Blade and applying their tactical coordination. They cover approaches, neutralize lower level vampires, and attempt to create openings for Blade to exploit. The combined effort is intense, but even together, they struggle against the sheer adaptability of Dracula. Blade realizes quickly that this fight is not about brute force. Dracula's power, skill, and intelligence outmatch direct aggression. Every strike Blade throws is countered, every maneuver analyzed. The Daywalker understands that to survive, he must adapt not only his tactics but his understanding of the battlefield itself. The encounter escalates into a high stakes, fast paced battle through the building. Corridors narrow, stairwells become arenas, and environmental hazards are exploited by both sides. Blade and the Night Stalkers move as one unit, adapting to Dracula's strategy in real time, relying on reflex, intuition, and precise communication. Amid the chaos, Dracula demonstrates his terrifying adaptability. He manipulates the environment, uses the momentum of attacks against the team, and strikes with a precision that borders on preternatural awareness. The team begins to understand that defeating him will require more than skill, it will require insight, strategy, and patience. The clash ends not with victory but with a tactical withdrawal. Blade signals the retreat, recognizing that survival and information are paramount. The Night Stalkers cover the extraction, ensuring that every team member exits safely despite Dracula's pursuit. Outside, Blade pauses, observing the calm aftermath. Dracula does not chase aggressively, instead, he watches, calculating, learning. The team survives, but the lesson is clear. This enemy cannot be approached with the same methods as any other vampire. The city itself begins to feel the weight of the escalating war. Reports of strange attacks, missing persons, and unusual vampire activity surge. Blade and the Night Stalkers realize that Dracula's influence is not isolated, it is systemic, affecting humans and vampires alike. The battlefield is no longer confined to hidden corridors and secret lairs. It now spans the streets, buildings, and underworld networks of the city. At the Night Stalker's base, tension is high. Every system, map, and sensor is analyzed, seeking patterns that could provide a tactical advantage. Blade studies them meticulously, knowing that information will be key to surviving Dracula's unpredictable movements. But the more they uncover, the more the threat seems to expand. Dracula's presence is everywhere yet elusive. Meanwhile, internal dynamics among the Night Stalkers begin to shift. Differences in strategy, approach, and experience create friction. Blade, accustomed to working alone, clashes subtly with the team's methods. He pushes for decisive action, while they advocate for careful planning and caution. The tension is tangible yet necessary. It reflects the challenge of uniting experience with coordination under extreme pressure. The team decides to split their focus. Some members track smaller vampire cells disrupted by Dracula's emergence, neutralizing threats that could escalate into citywide chaos. Others prepare for direct engagement with the more powerful entities under Dracula's influence, attempting to anticipate his next moves. Blade, of course, leads the most dangerous missions, operating at the forefront where risk and strategy intersect. A new intelligence report arrives, one that changes everything. A key vampire faction has initiated a coordinated attack on human targets designed to lure Blade and the Night Stalkers into a trap. The objective is unclear: elimination, diversion, or testing. But Blade's instincts recognize the pattern immediately. This is not random, this is manipulation. Dracula is shaping the battlefield according to his design. The team prepares, weapons are upgraded, tactical plans rehearsed, and contingencies mapped. Every decision is precise, yet the uncertainty of Dracula's strategies looms like a shadow over every movement. The mission begins in a dense industrial sector, streets darkened by smoke and shadows. Blade moves with his characteristic speed and precision, engaging vampire operatives with deadly efficiency. The Night Stalkers cover flanks, suppress reinforcements, and maintain communication under extreme pressure. The operation unfolds like a complex dance of skill, strategy, and instinct. Midway through, Dracula intervenes, not openly but subtly, using controlled manipulations of the environment. Lights flicker, structural hazards are exploited, and attacks are redirected. Blade senses the change instantly. The battlefield itself has become a weapon. The Night Stalkers realize that Dracula's influence is not only physical but psychological, altering perception and forcing them to adapt on the fly. Blade and the team fight fiercely. Every strike counts. Every decision could mean life or death. And yet, even as the immediate threat is neutralized, the encounter leaves them shaken. Dracula is not just powerful, he is omnipresent in effect, shaping events without appearing directly. After the skirmish, Blade retreats with the Night Stalkers to analyze the encounter. His internal conflict grows. He recognizes that traditional methods will not be enough. Strength, skill, and speed alone will fail against an enemy who controls perception, manipulates tactics, and anticipates responses before they happen. The team begins to reassess. Coordination, intelligence, and strategic foresight must now take precedence over brute force. Blade slowly integrates into this mindset, but his internal struggle is clear. Adapting to reliance on others challenges his independence, his instincts, and his identity as a solitary hunter. Meanwhile, Dracula's influence continues to expand. His presence in the city, subtle yet commanding, alters human behavior, disrupts vampire operations, and fractures loyalty. Smaller factions begin to act independently, some attempting to ally with him, others retreating in fear. The environment becomes unpredictable, chaotic, and highly dangerous. Blade and the Night Stalkers understand the stakes. Survival, citywide control, and strategic intelligence are now intertwined. Each action has consequences far beyond the immediate fight. Every movement shapes the battlefield in ways that could determine victory or total disaster. The war escalates. The enemy adapts faster than ever. And Blade realizes that this phase of the conflict will test not only his strength, but his mind, his judgment, and his ability to trust. The next confrontation will push everyone to their absolute limits. The city has become a battlefield. Vampire attacks spike across multiple districts, coordinated in a way that only one mind could orchestrate. Dracula's. Entire neighborhoods are thrown into panic as the Night Stalkers scramble to contain the chaos, trying to protect civilians while tracking the enemy's movements. The scale of the threat is unlike anything Blade has faced before. Blade moves through the city with lethal precision, striking down vampires in tight alleyways, abandoned factories, and shadowed rooftops. His combat style is surgical, yet the sheer number of adversaries tests his endurance. For every enemy he neutralizes, two more appear, adapting, coordinating, and striking with unexpected cunning. This is no longer random violence, it is strategy incarnate. The Night Stalkers operate as an extension of Blade's instincts, covering multiple angles, coordinating suppression teams, and managing evacuation zones. Their communication is constant, rapid, and precise, but even their combined efforts cannot stop the scale of Dracula's orchestration. The city itself is a maze of traps, ambushes, and manipulated environments. Amid the chaos, Blade identifies patterns. Dracula is not simply attacking, he is herding, isolating, and testing. Certain routes, certain districts are deliberately left open. Blade realizes this is a strategic move. Dracula is forcing him into scenarios, creating opportunities for observation and manipulation. The Night Stalkers notice it too. They see the signs, analyze the movements, and confirm Blade's instinct. The enemy is far ahead in planning. Every move they make is anticipated, every tactic predicted. This is not just combat, it is psychological warfare. Blade decides to engage directly, leading the team toward the heart of the conflict. As they enter an abandoned industrial complex, the atmosphere changes. Shadows deepen unnaturally, sounds echo in deceptive ways, and the air seems heavier, an environment manipulated to disorient and challenge. Dracula emerges, not aggressively, but with absolute command. His presence is magnetic, controlling, and almost palpable. Even the vampires under his influence act with a different precision, coordinated, disciplined, and aware. The confrontation begins. The battle is immediate and intense. Blade and the Night Stalkers fight with all their skill, moving fluidly, adapting to every counter, and exploiting every weakness. Yet Dracula's strategy is overwhelming. He anticipates attacks, manipulates opponents, and controls the battlefield in ways that seem almost supernatural. Blade strikes, fast and lethal, yet Dracula counters effortlessly. Every move Blade makes is met with adaptation. His strikes are redirected, his momentum used against him, his instincts tested like never before. The Night Stalkers provide support, but even their combined firepower cannot break Dracula's control. As the fight escalates, environmental hazards come into play. Crumbling walkways, industrial machinery, and precarious scaffolding create new challenges. Blade navigates them with skill, using his surroundings strategically, but Dracula seems unaffected, flowing through the chaos with calculated precision. The team begins to realize a terrifying truth: brute force alone cannot win. Dracula's intelligence, adaptability, and strategic mind make him a force that transcends ordinary combat. Each attack reveals more about his methods, his anticipation, and his understanding of human and vampire behavior alike. Despite the overwhelming pressure, Blade maintains clarity. His mind works relentlessly, assessing, calculating, and adapting. Every strike, every movement, every decision is analyzed in real time. The Night Stalkers follow his lead, trusting his instincts even as they struggle to match Dracula's adaptability. The encounter reaches a critical point. The team is cornered, outnumbered, and outmaneuvered. Civilians are at risk, vampires surround them, and Dracula remains untouchable. Blade knows a direct confrontation will result in casualties, perhaps fatal ones. With a calculated decision, he signals a tactical retreat. The team moves as one, executing a controlled withdrawal while minimizing exposure and protecting civilians. Every second is critical, every action matters. Outside the complex, the team regroups, adrenaline high and minds racing. They have survived, but the message is undeniable. Dracula's influence is absolute, his power and intelligence unmatched. This is a new kind of war, one where strategy, adaptability, and foresight outweigh pure combat skill. Blade reflects on the encounter. His strength, experience, and speed are formidable, but against Dracula, they are insufficient alone. The lesson is clear. To win, he must adapt further, rely on the Night Stalkers, and embrace strategy as much as instinct. Meanwhile, Dracula watches from afar. He does not pursue recklessly, he observes, calculates, and learns. His plan is unfolding exactly as intended. The city is his chessboard, and Blade is one of many pieces he is maneuvering carefully. The battle has escalated, the enemy is everywhere, and the true test of Blade's strength, strategy, and alliance is only beginning. The city remains tense. Even in the shadows, civilians whisper about missing friends, strange attacks, and unexplainable phenomena. Blade and the Night Stalkers know that Dracula's influence is expanding faster than ever, manipulating not only the vampire network but human behavior as well. Every moment is critical. Hesitation could result in disaster. Inside the Night Stalker's base, preparation becomes almost ritualistic. Weapon systems are upgraded with new enhancements designed specifically for countering Dracula's supernatural abilities. Specialized ammunition, reinforced stakes, advanced electronics, and experimental explosives are meticulously tested. Every tool, every device, every precaution is intended to give them even the smallest advantage. Blade focuses intensely on his personal discipline. His reflexes, stamina, and combat instincts are unmatched, but even he senses limits. Training sessions are now as much about mental acuity as physical strength, anticipating Dracula's strategies, understanding psychological manipulation, and maintaining absolute control under extreme stress. The Night Stalkers also face internal pressure. Coordination is critical, yet stress and fear begin to surface. Some question the viability of the plan, others fear for their lives. Blade's experience becomes the anchor, his presence commanding respect and focus. Slowly, cohesion solidifies. Every member understands that survival, strategy, and precision will determine the outcome. Intelligence reports reveal a disturbing development. Dracula is no longer acting through proxies alone. He has begun orchestrating events in multiple locations simultaneously, creating distractions, testing human and vampire reactions, and forcing Blade and the Night Stalkers into reactive positions. Every move made by the team is anticipated. The challenge is no longer physical, it is mental, strategic, and psychological. Blade realizes the necessity of adaptation. Brute force alone cannot defeat an opponent who sees several moves ahead. Coordination with the Night Stalkers must be flawless, timing must be exact. The team's survival depends not on individual skill but on unified action under pressure. A plan emerges. Blade and the Night Stalkers decide to divide objectives, contain and protect civilians, prevent Dracula from gaining leverage through fear or chaos, neutralize vampire factions, destabilize subordinate vampire networks before Dracula consolidates power, prepare a direct engagement strategy, understand Dracula's patterns, create traps, and be ready to exploit weaknesses during confrontation. The team trains relentlessly, simulating scenarios that combine physical combat, environmental hazards, and Dracula's adaptive behavior. Blade demonstrates techniques to anticipate the enemy's counters, while the Night Stalkers refine communication, positioning, and strategy under pressure. Amid this preparation, personal stakes grow. Blade is haunted by the thought that one miscalculation could cost lives. Night Stalkers wrestle with fear and responsibility. Trust is tested at every level, between humans, between Blade and the team, and even within their own strategies. Finally, the time arrives for the next operation. Blade leads a strike team to intercept a key vampire stronghold, one rumored to be under Dracula's direct observation. The operation begins with calculated precision, silent infiltration, tactical maneuvers, and coordinated elimination of threats. The city around them is tense, alive with unseen dangers and subtle manipulations. As they enter the stronghold, the team faces elite vampire operatives trained specifically to counter Blade and the Night Stalkers. Combat is intense, fluid, and dynamic. Blade moves like a shadow, striking with speed and precision, while the Night Stalkers provide cover and coordination. Every attack is met with resistance, every movement anticipated. Dracula does not appear immediately. Instead, his influence is felt. Traps, subtle manipulations, and environmental hazards challenge the team at every turn. Blade recognizes this tactic instantly, testing, observing, and preparing for the moment of direct confrontation. The team successfully neutralizes multiple threats but at a cost. Fatigue sets in, tension rises, and the psychological pressure mounts. They realize that Dracula's strategy is not simply to fight, they are being molded, tested, and manipulated. Survival alone will not be enough, understanding the enemy is paramount. Blade pauses briefly, assessing both the mission and the team. Their skills, unity, and strategy have improved, yet the enemy remains ahead. Dracula is patient, methodical, and relentless. This is not merely a physical confrontation, it is a war of wits, instincts, and foresight. The Night Stalkers regroup, recovering from the skirmish. Weapons are reloaded, systems recalibrated, and strategies reassessed. The operation has succeeded in disrupting vampire activity, but the ultimate battle looms. Blade understands that the final confrontation will test every limit, physical, mental, and moral. Dracula's influence continues to grow subtly throughout the city. Every shadow, every movement, and every civilian interaction is now part of a larger plan. His omnipresence is a constant reminder that the war is far from over. Blade reflects silently. Speed, strength, and experience have carried him this far, but now strategy, foresight, and alliance will define survival. The true confrontation approaches, and preparation is everything. The city waits, the team waits, and Dracula prepares. The stage is set for the ultimate showdown. The calm before the storm is gone. Dracula launches a full-scale offensive across the city. Coordinated vampire attacks erupt simultaneously at multiple locations: subway tunnels, skyscrapers, and residential districts. The scale of the assault overwhelms standard human defenses, forcing Blade and the Night Stalkers into reactive maneuvers. Civilians are at risk, chaos reigns, and the city teeters on the brink of collapse. Blade quickly assesses the situation. He understands that traditional direct strikes will not suffice. Every encounter is a trap, every engagement strategically calculated by Dracula. The Night Stalkers split into teams to cover critical zones, evacuation, containment, and tactical engagement. Coordination becomes a matter of life and death. Blade moves through the streets like a phantom. His combat style is precise, lethal, and relentless. Vampires attack in coordinated packs, but Blade's experience allows him to exploit their patterns. Every strike counts, every movement calculated. Yet the pressure is immense. He cannot fight every battle alone, nor can the Night Stalkers handle the scale without his leadership. Meanwhile, Dracula's influence is everywhere. He manipulates subordinate vampires with near perfect efficiency, sending them to exploit weaknesses in the team's strategy. Blade senses his presence in subtle ways. The shift in enemy coordination, the timing of attacks, the unexpected environmental hazards. Dracula is orchestrating the battlefield as if it were a game of chess, every pawn, knight, and rook in precise motion. The Night Stalkers are pushed to their limits. Exhaustion, fear, and adrenaline intersect as they face relentless opposition. They rely on precise communication and trust in Blade's judgment. Every moment of hesitation could mean death, every misstep a potential disaster. Amid the chaos, Blade identifies Dracula's central maneuver, a coordinated push aimed at drawing him into a direct confrontation while destabilizing the city's human population. This is exactly what Dracula desires: a psychological test, forcing Blade into high-stakes decision-making under extreme pressure. Blade responds strategically. He guides the Night Stalkers to anticipate Dracula's manipulations, establishing fallback positions, controlled choke points, and traps designed to limit the vampire forces. Every decision reflects experience, instinct, and adaptability, combining to create a tactical edge despite overwhelming odds. The first major clash occurs in a crumbling industrial complex. Vampire forces surround the team, and Blade leads the counterattack with lethal precision. The Night Stalkers cover flanks, neutralize reinforcements, and maintain tactical control. Blade strikes with a combination of speed, force, and strategy that systematically dismantles the enemy's formations. Dracula intervenes, not directly, but through elite vampire lieutenants. Each lieutenant moves with intelligence and adaptability, countering Blade's maneuvers, exploiting openings, and forcing the team to adapt instantaneously. The fight becomes a blend of physical prowess, tactical coordination, and psychological warfare. Blade realizes that survival requires both aggressive strikes and careful strategic planning. He adapts dynamically, directing attacks, exploiting weaknesses, and creating opportunities for the Night Stalkers to support effectively. Together, they create a flow that pushes back the enemy, but at a continuous cost of energy and focus. As the battle rages, civilians are evacuated under extreme pressure. The team coordinates flawlessly, minimizing casualties while the city burns with controlled chaos. Every movement is critical, every decision instantaneous. Blade's leadership is the linchpin, and the Night Stalker's trust in him ensures operational success despite overwhelming odds. Amid the intensity, Blade senses Dracula's observation. The master vampire remains distant yet omnipresent, controlling the battlefield from shadows, orchestrating chaos without revealing himself. His strategy is brilliant and terrifying, forcing Blade to think several steps ahead, balancing offense, defense, and the protection of innocents. By the end of the assault, the Night Stalkers are battered but operational, civilians are largely safe, and vampire forces are partially neutralized. The city is scarred, tension high, and morale fragile. Blade stands calculating, exhausted but focused. Dracula has revealed a fraction of his true power and strategy, and the stakes have never been higher. Blade and the Night Stalkers regroup. Weapons are checked, systems recalibrated, and plans updated. The city is momentarily quiet, but the calm is deceptive. The war is far from over. Dracula has demonstrated his intelligence, strategy, and ruthless efficiency. The final confrontation looms, and preparation must be meticulous. Blade knows the truth. The next encounter will not just be a fight, it will be a war of mind, body, and strategy. Every choice, every maneuver, every strike will define the outcome. The city waits, the team waits, and Dracula prepares his ultimate gambit. The city is on the brink of collapse. Vampire activity surges to unprecedented levels, coordinated with precision and intelligence that only Dracula could orchestrate. Entire districts are under siege, and the Night Stalkers are stretched to their limits, managing civilians, combat zones, and strategic counterattacks simultaneously. Blade understands the stakes. This is not just a physical confrontation, it is a psychological, tactical, and existential challenge. Dracula is testing not only their combat ability, but their resilience, judgment, and unity. Every misstep could be catastrophic. The Night Stalkers are battle hardened, but fatigue, fear, and the constant pressure begin to show. Coordination becomes more critical than ever. Blade takes command, implementing real-time strategies to outmaneuver vampire forces. He moves like a shadow through the city streets, striking with lethal precision while Night Stalkers neutralize threats and secure civilian zones. Dracula escalates his offensive. Elite vampire lieutenants engage in sophisticated traps designed to divide the team, exploit weaknesses, and force tactical errors. Environmental manipulation, collapsing structures, electrified hazards, and misleading cues pushes Blade and his team to the edge of endurance. Blade adapts instantly. He anticipates Dracula's patterns, recalibrates strategies, and uses both the environment and Night Stalkers as force multipliers. Speed, skill, and intelligence converge, allowing the team to survive what would otherwise be insurmountable threats. Amid the chaos, Personal stakes intensify. Night Stalkers face moral dilemmas, choosing between civilians and tactical advantage. Blade wrestles with his inner instincts versus calculated strategy, balancing lethal force with the responsibility of leadership. Every decision carries weight, shaping both immediate outcomes and long term survival. A massive confrontation erupts in the city's industrial district. Blade and the Night Stalkers face Dracula's most powerful lieutenants simultaneously. The battle is fast, brutal, and precise, every movement a test of reflex, endurance, and coordination. Blade demonstrates tactical genius, using misdirection, agility, and team coordination to dismantle enemy formations. Dracula watches from the shadows, observing every move. His manipulations are subtle but devastating, forcing the team into traps, testing patience, and exploiting overconfidence. Blade recognizes that this encounter is as much about endurance and strategy as it is about raw combat. The team suffers injuries and exhaustion, yet they adapt, using intelligence, teamwork, and Blade's guidance to press forward. Every obstacle becomes a challenge to overcome, every attack a learning experience. Blade's experience and insight provide the critical edge in an otherwise overwhelming scenario. As the battle reaches its peak, the city itself seems alive with tension. Fires burn, structures crumble, and chaos reigns. Blade and the Night Stalkers fight not just for victory but for survival, civilian lives, team cohesion, and the very stability of the city. Dracula finally intervenes directly, appearing for the first time in a full scale assault. His presence commands absolute attention, his power, skill, and intelligence evident in every movement. Blade faces him directly, engaging in a clash that is both physical and psychological. Every strike, parry, and maneuver carries profound weight, testing limits like never before. The battle is intense, near apocalyptic. Blade and Dracula exchange blows with precision, speed, and strategy. Each side tests the other, adapting instantly to attacks, exploiting weaknesses, and controlling the battlefield. The Night Stalkers assist, supporting Blade, securing civilians, and neutralizing lesser threats, but the ultimate confrontation is clearly Blade versus Dracula. The battlefield is scarred, the city teeters on the edge, and the team is exhausted yet resolute. Blade realizes that the final confrontation is imminent. Every lesson learned, every strategy executed, and every ounce of skill will be required to survive and defeat Dracula. The stage is fully set, the final confrontation approaches, and Blade must face his greatest challenge yet. The city trembles under the weight of Dracula's final assault. Fires rage, sirens wail, and shadows seem to move with purpose. Blade and the Night Stalkers are battle worn, exhausted, and stretched to their absolute limits, but their resolve is unbreakable. Every lesson, every battle, every sacrifice has led to this moment. Blade knows the truth. Victory will demand everything: strength, intelligence, strategy, and heart. Dracula is not just an opponent, he is the culmination of centuries of planning, power, and malevolence. Every move Blade makes is countered with precision, every tactic anticipated. This is a war of skill, wits, and endurance. The Night Stalkers coordinate flawlessly, providing cover, securing civilians, and isolating vampire lieutenants. Every member plays a critical role, from tactical suppression to intelligence gathering. Blade moves like a whirlwind, striking with speed and deadly accuracy, exploiting openings created by both strategy and intuition. Dracula appears fully, his presence commanding and terrifying. His abilities, honed over centuries, make him nearly unstoppable in combat. Strength, speed, and cunning combine with his strategic mind, forcing Blade to adapt constantly. Each strike, block, and maneuver is a high-stakes calculation. The battle escalates into a near-apocalyptic confrontation. Environmental hazards, collapsing structures, fires, electrified floors become both challenges and weapons. Blade uses them masterfully, turning obstacles into advantages. Dracula adapts instantly, forcing Blade and the Night Stalkers into a relentless game of attack, counterattack, and tactical improvisation. Amid the chaos, the Night Stalkers execute synchronized maneuvers. Their training, coordination, and trust in Blade allow them to hold strategic positions, neutralize lesser threats, and disrupt Dracula's plans. Each action is precise, designed to support Blade in the decisive moments. Blade and Dracula clash directly. Speed meets strategy, skill confronts intelligence, and experience collides with centuries of supernatural power. Every strike is brutal, every counter deadly. Blade anticipates Dracula's moves, exploiting subtle weaknesses, while Dracula adapts, tests, and manipulates the battlefield to his advantage. The fight moves through the city's ruins, the streets, rooftops, and industrial zones, becoming arenas of destruction. Civilians are protected by coordinated Night Stalker interventions, but the scale of destruction is immense. Fire, debris, and chaos create a cinematic backdrop of near apocalyptic intensity. Blade's determination is absolute. Each strike, each maneuver, and each calculated risk pushes him closer to victory. Dracula's power is extraordinary, yet Blade's experience, adaptability, and unyielding resolve match it blow for blow. The Night Stalker's support amplifies his efforts, creating moments of tactical brilliance that challenge even Dracula's mastery. Finally, after a relentless series of strikes, feints, and high intensity combat sequences, Blade identifies a critical opening. Using precision, timing, and every resource available, from enhanced weapons to environmental strategy, he lands decisive blows that weaken Dracula beyond recovery. Dracula's final stand is fierce, but Blade's combination of skill, strategy, and determination proves overwhelming. The vampire lord falls, his influence over the city collapsing instantly. Subordinate vampires falter, panic spreads, and the tide of battle shifts irreversibly. Blade and the Night Stalkers survey the aftermath. The city is scarred but saved. Civilians emerge from hiding, and surviving vampire factions retreat into hiding, broken and leaderless. Blade's unyielding discipline, the Night Stalkers' coordination, and their combined strategic brilliance have won the day. Exhausted but triumphant, Blade reflects on the battle. Strength alone is never enough. Knowledge, preparation, unity, and adaptability define victory against an enemy as formidable as Dracula. The war is over for now, but the lessons endure. The city slowly begins to recover. Shadows remain, but hope returns. Blade, ever vigilant, disappears into the night, a protector, a warrior, and a legend. The ultimate confrontation has ended. The threat is neutralized, and Blade's legacy as the Daywalker is cemented. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing movie breakdowns. See you in the next video.